All right, great question. How do you raise 200 grand? It's actually kind of quite simple. So let's talk maths and then let's talk relationships. So that is science and then art, right? Let's start with the geeks. I'm one of them. Let's talk about the science. Statistically speaking, and I have talked to lots of people and I've mentored lots of people, so I have found the same results from everybody, so it's nothing personal to me. On average, a person when you're running a fundraising campaign will put 50 grand in. So on average, that means some people will give you a very small amount of money and some people will give you a very large amount of money when you're running a fundraising campaign, but the statistical average is 50 grand. So straight away maths, 200 grand is 4 people, okay? There you are. So now we're looking ideally for 4 people. The second question is how does that process work? Again, let's stick on maths before we talk about the art of it. So on average, every 1 in 10 people that you meet at places like property events will have money and possibly either struggle for time or choose not to put their own time in, and may be interested in working with third parties who can deliver property projects. That's you and previously me when I was raising finance. So that's 1 in 10. Okay, Suze, so that's, I need 4 people times 1 in 10. No, because next 1 in 10 will have the cash, but 1 in 2 will say yes to you and 1 in 2 will say no to you. So we needed 4 people times 1 in 10, 40 people times 2. 80 people. Okay, so now sticking on maths, we need to meet and get the contact details of 80 people interested in property. 1 in 10 will have money and be interested in someone else doing the work. That's you. And 1 in 2 will say yes to you and 1 in 2 will say no to you. So 80 people delivers 4 investors, on average 50 grand, which is 200 grand. Sticking with me on the maths? Now let's talk about the process, which I would still contest as still the science, the maths, not the art, because it's process driven. People will not invest with you when you go, hi, can you give me some money? Like, that's bananas. People will invest with you when you develop up a relationship, prove your credibility, show some evidence, etc., etc. So I call them touch points. And on average, people will start to decide to invest with you between 5 and 9 touch points. I don't count an email as a touch point. I count a phone call if it's been agreed that you're having that phone call as a touch point. I count a meeting if it's agreed that you're having that meeting. So if you just bumped into them in the street, that doesn't count because they didn't commit, you didn't commit. Beyonce, if you liked it, you should put a ring in it. There's no commitment there, honey. So out of those 80 people, you have to, still on science, not relationship, work that relationship to get to the no's as well as you saying no because they haven't got any money or they're not interested in investing in other people. You have to move them through what you might call the touch point process. Now they'll drop off slowly, so there'll be a whole bunch of people like Suze got no money at all, so that'll be touch point 1, they're gone. A whole bunch of people on touch point 2, Suze got no money. A whole bunch of people on touch point 3 where you're like, I don't like that person. Why am I going to work with them? You just won't work with anyone you don't want to work with. Like, that is crazy. You should be in a job then. And that is not financial freedom. So do you see on every touch point, as we get between the 5 and 9, people are sort of coming off your customer process, your fundraising campaign. So I don't ask you to get 80 people to touch point 9, which is on my maths 560 phone calls or meetings. You'll have fewer than that. You know, you'll shed at touch point 1, touch point 2, touch point 3, touch point 4, touch point 5. But very few people will give you money with obviously all the legal documentation and the security before touch point 5, and typically they'll decide to work with you between touch point 5 and touch point 9. So we're probably talking about 200 phone calls or meetings, very roughly. It's quite a lot of work. Private fundraising is time consuming. So now you need to schedule it in your diary. Don't just like, oh God, it just happened. No, that you put time in your diary. We're still on the maths. You put time in your diary to make this private fundraising campaign happen. Because if you don't put time, your most valuable resource, it just isn't going to happen. Still sitting on the maths, You need to be asking them, although we're veering towards actual people, which is the science, the art of it. How do you find out whether they're interested? 3 key questions. What's your objective? Not you, but their objective. What's your objective? So what do they want to achieve? What's your time frame? And how much money is in your pot? I'll get that information out within 30 seconds, well, 2 minutes, definitely. So what's their objective? They're not probably normally going to go, well, Suze, I want like a 10% return on an annual, they just don't talk that way. They're like, I want to send the kids to university, or I want to go on holiday, or I want to buy a new car, or I want to buy a caravan or a camper van, or, I want to retire, or blah, blah, blah. It is usually a thing rather than a return on capital employed. Your multimillionaires, your major fundraising people who are going to be lending you hundreds and thousands of pounds or even millions of pounds, they have a very astute financial head. The middle range of people, normally it's a thing or an experience that they're looking to achieve. So now we're moving to the art, have to unpick that, because they won't go, I want to buy a camper van and it's going to cost this much money and therefore my return on my capital employed needs to be X. You need to figure that out. So let's just take a simple example. I don't know, somebody with 200 grand, just if we get a one-hit wonder, and they want 10 grand in 9 months' time. You could probably deliver that through your property projects, so that's a fit. Let's take another example, somebody with 200 grand, and in fact, we had it the other day on my mentoring call, and they wanted a 40% return in a year. That's crazy. You should say no to that money immediately, because you're never going to deliver on that on your property projects. So you find out what's their objective, what's their time frame, when do they want to get that objective by, because that's you figuring out how much do they want to earn. And will my projects earn that? Because if not, don't bother working with them, because you're going to be disappointing to them and disappointing to you. When do they want their money back with the extra capital, the extra profit? Well, if they say 3 months, there's no point, because you can't do a buy and a sell in 3 months. But if they're saying a year, then you can run either one, or you can't quite run 2, but you certainly could run 1.5 buy to sells within that period of time. And then finally, how much is their pot? Because there's no point you talk in the nicest way, talking to potential investors in your fundraising campaign if they don't have any money. That is mad. So when you're saying, what's your objective? When do you want to make this happen by? And how much have you got to make this happen with? Those are natural conversations to find out how much their pot is. Now let's move from the science, which is people, conversion rates, time frames, and numbers of, if you like, what I would call touch points, to the more fluffy stuff, which I also quite like. So come with me, creative people, and scientists, just bear with us. This is important. I personally never take more than 20% of what somebody has, because I'm not fundraising at the moment, by the way, so don't worry. When I was, and I raised 600 grand in 14 weeks, I raised £1 million pledges in 4 hours once, and I raised 100 grand with 3 texts, and it was pledged within the hour. Now, once you can raise 100 grand within an hour, you have run an effective fundraising campaign. And I want all of you who are competent at finding profitable deals to be in that space. You need to be a strong private fundraiser with good quality product and good quality profit-making deals for people. Not some blaggy person, but real, okay? So I do not want, but nonetheless, I recognize that what I am delivering can be risky. So at no point would I ever want to take 100% of somebody's money. It's just, I don't know. I just always say, whatever your pot is, divide it by 5. The maximum I want to work with is 20%, because you don't have that massive nervousness around, oh my goodness, if this goes wrong, what happens to that pot? So number 1, I would do that. Number 2, you've got to, and we're back to the maths, you've got to be looking at how do you actually make sure that their money is safe. And we're going to talk about that on different videos. You've got to do everything above board. You've got to make sure you're legal. Do everything with written documentation. On my website, we give you samples of all our documents that we use that you can download. You've got to advise them in writing that they must take legal advice. So, and then let's go back to the art. Have a veto button. That sounds funny, doesn't it? But you're in this business for financial freedom. You almost certainly don't have enough money to do all the projects you want to deliver. That's normal, that's everybody. But at no point do you have to work with anyone you don't like. So if you get to the point you think, for whatever reason, I don't want to work with you, put them on your veto list, and that clears the decks, and then go find people that you do want to work with. Now, finally, I want you to understand the fundraising triangle. So we've said, haven't we? We've said 80 people worked correctly delivers you on average 200 grand. So 80 business cards telephoned where you're shedding on call 1, call 2, call 3, call 4, call 5 will get you a number of people into the range of 5 touch points to 9 touch points. We've said 1 in 10 will have money that will be interested in investing. 1 in 2 will say, no way, honey. 1 in 2 will say, yes, please, I'm very interested. But even if they're super interested and you don't like them, or your gut is telling you no, don't do it, okay? So we want to make sure that you're only working with people that you really like. But coming back to that triangle, I then want you in your brain to appreciate there are 3, what I might call stratas of people that you're going to be working with in your fundraising campaign, because this is a fundraising campaign. The first strata is people with limited amount of funds. So they may well be able to fund some of your refurbs. So they're going to be smaller amounts of money. It's what they've got. And you're going to be taking that for refurbs. Make sure you secure it correctly and you're all legal and above board. The second strata is probably roughly the 50 grand people. I mean, very roughly, you know, give or take quite a few tens of thousands of pounds. And then your third strata, remember it's a triangle, are going to be your multimillionaires who maybe sat there, like many of mine were, with kind of 5 or 6 million quid, and will be putting, say, 600,000 to £1 million to you a year, should you prove yourself to be very effective. Now, everybody wants this little triangle on the top, and I absolutely get that. Oh my God, wouldn't life be easy? It's not how it works, hon. It is always a triangle, and you cannot avoid lower money, higher numbers, medium money, medium numbers, high money, small numbers. So you need to decide how you're going to deal with that triangle and qualify your investors for being in the 3 stratas. You need to decide, and we'll do other videos on this, on how you're going to secure the lower money, the medium money, and the high money. Okay? I hope that has given you a really strong overview of how you raise 200 grand in quite a lot of technical detail, but I don't do anything by halves. Good luck. All of us who are successful in property do not, or did not, or at one point found ourselves not having enough money in property. That is almost a guarantee, and raising private finance is the solution to that, as long as you're a competent developer. Good luck.